you. Let's see how this works. I actually think I'm too tall for this, so let's move down. So this is what we're going to talk about today. Why are we going to talk about this? As you heard, we come from a firm called Bonivo, a San Francisco-based consultancy firm working with digital transformation, which is something that Patrick will talk a little more about what that actually is. The simple part, the short story is that we help companies find opportunities or meet challenges which is brought by the digitalization, more or less, which can include everything from IoT projects and a lot of other things. We're working with, we've done this trip or journey a couple of times from the early phases to understand that you need to do something we actually have a completed product. Currently we're working with, for example, IKEA, Eon, Scania trucks in Sweden, and among others. So that's why we're talking about this, because we have done this journey a few times, and we know that there are a lot of pitfalls. A lot of them we have made ourselves. So we hope to share some of them at least, even if you can probably speak about this for a very long time. And you're going to hear from me when speaking about this. I'm mostly going to go from the IoT perspective, because I have spent most of the last years doing IoT projects, but digitalization are other types of projects also, even though you have a lot of common problems. And IoT itself is complex. I'm sure that a lot of you know that and agree with me. But I mean, you have all the different parts coming together, your hardware, software, and the user experience might not depend on any of them. But what we see when we're working with large companies is that this is, even if the product is the most important part, it's usually not what makes a product fail. It's a lot of other things we will come into that usually are, which you don't see from the start, it's usually a problem. We will base this on a process we usually use. When we talk about this digitalization journey, being awareness, the first phase, and when to execution is actually then when you deliver the project. And I'm going to let Patrick start talking about awareness and innovation phase, which you know much better than me.
I'll start now?
Yeah.
Yep. Yes. Now, okay, so I'm not as tall as Mikael, so I can stand up here. It's a good thing. But as Mikael said, we have these 4 phases in our delivery. We meet a lot of companies that is really analog in their approach. It's and the journey from analog to digital is a nice journey, and it's an exciting journey. And we have divided this into those 4 phases, where I start to, what we always do first is talk about the awareness phase. And that's the thing, is that to get the companies to understand why are we doing this. And we have seen some of these pictures a lot. All of us have seen this from the Papal election 2005 and the difference in 2013. It's an extremely big difference. And no one could predict this really. And that is the tricky part in this digital transformation journey. And to get the companies to understand that this is the challenge, we don't know what's coming. And what has happened is that we have an ability to predict and learn, and we have the pace of change, and we have been here. We have always been in advance here, but sometimes around the millennia, something happened. The speed and complexity exceeded our way to predict and learn. So right now we have an analog culture, IT, process, business development that is not adjusted to this pace of speed and complexity. And that is the tricky part. We need to work in an environment that we don't know the answer to. And as Jack Welch said, that if the rate of change outside exceeds the rate of change on the inside, the end is near. And that's why we see all this disruption. 52% of the Fortune 500 companies since 2000 are gone. And that's because of, I go back, of this challenge, because we are so used to work in an environment that is known for us. And we all know this. We have seen this so much with the Kodak example, but it's so typical. I mean, 13 employees compared to 17,000 employees. That's a huge difference. And the reason for that is that all companies in some way need to be a technology company. Every company, whatever you work with, need to be a technology company. And every budget, everywhere, in every department needs to be a technology budget. And we also know that information will be the base of our main asset already right now. And maybe the most important thing is that I think we are talking a lot about digitalization, but the agility is maybe the most important part that we can adopt, because we don't know what's going to happen, then we must be agile. And the difference is that the value chain has changed. You guys probably know this, of course, already, but it's so fundamental that we manufactured a bicycle, we sold the bicycle, and then we had a transaction and the relationship was over. And as soon as we connect this bicycle, we have a totally new value chain. When we manufacture a bicycle, we sell the bicycle, and the relationship starts. And actually, if you're producing all this information around the bicycle, and that's what many of you already working with, is actually harvest information from something, and that's the trick. So if we know that the value is in data, IP, and design, many companies that we meet are still so focused on we are creating tables or glasses or mats or whatever, when we need to business develop on information instead. And one thing that Mikael and I encounter a lot is that the important to define digitalization. This is one, I really love this, because this is one way of describing digitalization. When the information produced by a thing, person, or place exceeds the value of a product itself. That's for me, is the main thing about digitalization. You feel free to just say, afterwards you can disagree with this. This is another one that is hard to read, so you can read it by yourself. But it's about giving information to the right people at the right time. So it's not so much about connecting the product. It's like displaying it for people to make good decisions. And what we explain, we are still in the awareness phase to describe this to the customers. And I mean, this is a journey. If you are a manufacturer of, let's say, mats, for instance, it's a journey actually to move to digital, and that's a quite tricky journey. And it's you see, we couldn't do this transformation, and it never looks like this, because we all know it's horrible. It's more look like this. It's a shitty journey that you are doing, and to get everyone to understand. And there are so many pitfalls, and I just took some of them. It's the lack of insight. What is this? What are we doing? What is the? Do we have a common digital vision? And we are keeping our analog business model in a new digital environment. You can be sure that will fail. We're keeping our analog products. I will come back to that. And maybe the most, we are a capability app. If it's in capabilities in IT or if it's in organization. And I have messed up a couple of projects, and it's always in the cultural side. You can't change culture, and Mikael will come back to that, because people are. When we are doing this, we are actually changing a lot, and if people, old guys like me, it's a resistance because you have invested so much time in education and knowledge and things, and if you turn that around, you will get the resistance. So I say that this is the most tricky part. The technology you can handle. So the other part, when we get this awareness, when we talk to the companies, you have the awareness. Why are we actually doing this? We go into the innovation part, and this is the most fun part, and the thing that I work with a lot, and. It's so interesting and it's so fun to work with that. And why? Could you see which line is longest? Or you? No? Equal? Yeah. Yeah. The thing is that I have changed them because we learn from school. Every time we learn from school, when we see a puzzle like this, they equal. Yeah, but it's not equal because I changed them, and that is the tricky part. That is the tricky part, that we have this, we perceive that, okay, as soon as we see a puzzle like this, they should be equal. That's what our mind says. So we are doing innovation, everyone else is doing that, and we want to create such a culture. That's such a crock of shit. We are doing innovation because our environment is changing. If we do that because we have the mindset that, oh, we know this puzzle, it's always the same. But we do this because everything is changing like those. So that is the important part. So what is everyone doing? They go out and take some old innovation and then they try to make something new of that. And that's not innovative. It's just boring. Or we can work with this linear innovation like Gillette is doing a lot. All you buying those, how much they cost? It's a fortune, at least in Sweden. Yeah. But the only thing they do is they add another blade. Now it's a totally new Gillette razor, and it's just another blade. And that is good because they can make money out of that. But that's not innovation, that's product development. Or maybe like Bic. Maybe we should change this one or make it red or something. But actually this is a good example of innovation, because someone there in some meetings said that maybe we're not in the pen industry, we're in the plastic industry. And then they changed and started to create cigarette lighters and shavers as well. And that is good. But if we come to the innovation, all of you, me and Mikael and everyone is going to work with is about creating new DNA. And we're all old enough to know how new DNA is created. It's combining two people or two things, and that's where we create something new. And that is the basis of modern innovation from my point of view. And that's when we create something really, really new. If we combine something that haven't been combined before, we get a totally 100% new DNA. And that's when we create something that isn't commodity. And the basis of this is of course what you are all techies here, of course, but it's from my point of view, it's about the mindset that we have this perfect storm right now, that we have the connected people. For the first time in history, we know exactly what people are thinking, doing, liking, hating, everything. We know that all the time. So we have the connected people. And as another entity, we have connected places. We all know that we get from our phone, you have 10 minutes going to home. We know that places is an entity, or we will know that by TripAdvisor. So now we have two entities. And the third entity is, of course, what many here is working with, is the connected things, that we go from stupid things to social sharing machines in different ways. And if we combine those three things, we get the new business model and the new business, like Nike Fuel Band that we know from years. But this is a good example in when we combine the connected people with geography and the connected thing. And if you solve this thing, you think all the time. I do this. I'm getting crazy because if you combine, you think of connected people, connected thing, connected places. You're thinking about the chair there in the cinema. How could you do something funny about that? Combine that with that's a place, and there's someone sitting there, and they have their smartphone, and this is this thing that at least I think about all the time, and that's what creates the new digital, innovative things. So I think it's so important that we don't end up in this only this connected things thing. So I just want to finish up with the innovation part because I think that it's so important because it's always down to people in that. Because when we are working these projects, it's always about brave people who brave personalities, and we always like this. I can see a lot of men and women up here who are probably extremely funny in the evening, and we are good personalities, and we are so interesting people, and then we go to work and we end up like this, and like a uniform. We're boring. We are very. So I think to be innovative in relation to the customers and consumers, I think we need to bring all these fun parts into our daily life, because I think that is the trick to be really innovative. And the other thing is that when we don't know, because up here, we don't know, and the people down here, they will always make us ashamed, because when you're saying some crazy stuff, you're always exposed to risks, and that's where we should be very brave, I think, in our innovation path, because everyone has a history of basing innovation on something that is already known. So by that, I will leave to Mikael to explain some of the pitfalls and the other parts after we've done the awareness. They know about why we are doing this, and the innovation, what should we do? And then Mikael is coming in to design it.
Yes. Thank you. So let's leave the innovation of sex toys and go to the design instead, not of sex toys. When I come into contact with organizations that are doing, and I'm going back to IoT projects, I usually find myself spending all my time trying to tell them not to focus on the product, because they usually are. They're talking about the product, how it looks, what it's going to do, how it's connected, and so on. And there's two reasons for this. One, I think you know very well. It's the user experience or the user value of this. I work a lot with smart home products, and frankly, most smart home use cases are crap. Some are okay, very few are good. That's a completely different talk, by the way. These large organizations usually have design agencies who say this very thing, but still you see that user value isn't front and center all the time. There are business decisions. You have a baggage with existing products or technology, or you have other things affecting it, so you don't always put the user value front and center. And sometimes that's okay, because sometimes you need to take a business decision that don't really support the user value or improves it. But if you do too much, which often handles, you of course ruin the product before it's actually designed and produced. And that's happening a lot in the boom we see today of smart connected products. There's a lot of bad use cases out there. The other part is, and I'm not going to talk about all the cultural parts now, we're going to get to that later. We're just going to talk about an IoT project and how many things you usually don't see about it. Because usually when you speak to someone, well, they know the hardware. They know what they want to do. They most likely have a good idea. They're going to connect it because they know they need to do that. They might have chosen Bluetooth or Zigbee or something else, and they have an idea they will need a cloud. If it's a manufacturing company, they probably know this part quite well. If they're not, they're going to lack a few things there, but they know they're going to have to manufacture this. They have a UX design part. They need to do different, they know they need an app. If they haven't done an app before, they won't really know questions to which platforms to use, what's the strategy, and so on. And we cover the user value, which is usually a little, everyone says that they do it, but they don't do it enough, but that's part of it. And then we start coming to a little more of the complex part. You have a business model. And usually when we talk a real digital transformation or journey, this usually affects a lot of these parts. It might be that you think you're going to sell this product in your normal channels. If you haven't sold connected products before or electronic products at all, you're definitely not going to do that. You might think it's the same group of people you're going to sell it to that you usually sell your products to. It's probably not. And you also might have new revenue streams. You might not earn your money the same way. And then you have the whole cloud intelligence. I mean, everyone says, we want to collect the data. Well, what do you want to do with the data? No one knows. Do we want open data? Do we want open APIs? Do you want to build an intelligence in this, or is it, as most products, still quite dumb, or what do you expect to do with it? And then based on the partnerships, so this is something everyone usually misses, which I'll come to later. It's what's the strategy, long-term strategy of the product? What you're going to do? Do you want to compete with smart things, or do you want to integrate with smart things? Do you want to compete with Philips Hue, or are you going to make another light bulb they can use in Philips Hue? And it's also based on, you might have a revenue stream based not on actually selling products, but based on partnership where you make money out of those instead. And then you have your IT architecture, especially, I mean, when you're working with large organizations, this is hell. And it might be that you need to use legacy systems because part of the user experience is based on using data that you already have within the company. But it might also be that, do you have an architecture that can handle 100,000, 500,000, a million connected devices, or any connected devices at all? And finally, you have post-launch activities, which, if you don't know what this is, you believe that you deliver a product like most organizations do, and you can just leave it and it will work forever. But you have all these support organization. Well, if we're going to come to this, but I mean, if you're not, you might only be working with, might have a support organization that have no idea what this product actually is. And the supply chain and the fault management and the cost down process if you haven't worked with hardware before. That's a lot of things to cover. And I would say that no, I have never ever seen one organization that can cover all of these before I started. I would say that a good organization covers a few of these before I start, and if they don't do it well, they only look in the middle. But what you have to be aware of is that this brings all of these decisions are strategic decisions that will affect you for a few years, up to depending on the life cycle of the product. But if you build an ecosystem, they could be quite long. And if you don't take these decisions deliberately, but just having them taken by you choosing, like saying, we're going to go with this technology, we're going to do like this strategy, or, oh, this just happened, we just saw that we're going to integrate with smart things. Then you're going to have a lot of decisions you not know if they actually meet your long-term requirements or not. So going into the execution, I'm going to speak about only one thing here, but it's the biggest reason that these kinds of projects fail within large organizations. And just to set the scene here, I mean, mostly you will see these types of projects start within a business innovation department or product development department, which is fine. But what you have to be aware of is that what Patrick described before about awareness and innovation, that's usually a process that can take 1 to 2 years or even more. And there's usually actually maybe only one to a few people in the organization, and then I'm talking about the organization with 10, 20,000, 100,000 people, that actually understands why you're doing this. There can be a lot of people knowing this is what we're going to do, a lot of people being enthusiastic about it, but there's very, very few people, maybe only one, being the sponsor that made this happen, that actually knows why you're doing this and why it's important for the company to go this way. And that brings a problem, because change takes time, and you have the rest, even if you have other parts of the organization involved in the project. I would say it takes at least 1 to 2 years for them to actually understand why you do this. And some parts will never do it. And you're going to have, if you do this within a large organization, you're going to have, if you're in the middle, you're going to have a couple of departments around you. You're going to have marketing, sales, support, IT, and so on. And those are, by name, things you're going to need to deliver a product, as we saw before with all those parts. The problem is they are only what you need by name and not by function. Because most of these aren't set up to do what you actually need to do with an IoT project or a more digital project. You might have a marketing organization that only markets the brands and never marketed a consumer device, and might have a sales department who sells services and never sold a physical device to the customer. You might have a support organization who usually answers questions about invoices and have no idea what a router is, which is a big common problem to actually teach them that. And this poses a problem because you're trying to, you will know that these departments or parts of the organization don't do what you need them to do, or you might know that they will need to change in the future because they aren't doing what your company hopefully will do in 5 to 10 years. But they don't know it, and they might see you as a threat when you have that dialogue, or you need to make them understand it. And that's of course never good. That's of course a problem. And in the best of cases, this makes the project cost more and take longer. And when I say more, I don't mean 50% more. I've seen projects that cost 10 to 20 times what you would expect from it, just for it being within a large organization. And even more often, it will mostly probably crash the project and have it fail. So that's a little doomsday, part of large organizations doing this. But what I would recommend then, or what a lot of people recommend, is to put it outside, run it as a startup more or less. Either you could make a business unit of it. Some companies can do that, like for example IKEA, because they are selling retail products to customers quite a lot. But if this is not what you actually usually do, it's completely different from what you usually do, put it outside, maybe its own company, run it as a real startup and give it its freedom to do that. Because what might happen, and people might not agree with me on this, saying that it's important for that change journey to actually have the product within the company, because it will help the departments change in the direction they need to change. And that's true, I completely agree with that. But the problem is that if it fails, which we said that you will increase the risk of failure, a failed project, a digital project, is not a good way of keeping change within an organization. Instead, it will stop it, and they will say, well, it didn't work the first time, well, it's going to work the second time. So from that, I would recommend having it outside, launch the product, make it successful, and then bring it back as a success story. And that will help make it a lot easier to actually change the organization. So coming to the end of this, there's a lot of things we talked about. A lot of things are complex. 3 things are important to take with you, and that's that the digitalization journey for large companies. One is larger than you think. There will always be things you have missed. It's harder than you think, and if you don't see that, then you should go back up to question 1, because then you missed something. And well, this makes it sound quite bad, of course, these 2, but the important part is that you have to do the journey. With a lot of these companies, some do it to get out beat their competitors, some do it to survive, but more or less, as Patrick said before, everyone will need to do it in different fashions, and if we don't do it, you will be part of these 52% that 52% of the companies that never don't exist anymore. So that's the short one. So please connect with us if you want. We want to talk with as many people as possible. If you have any questions or just the opportunities in the future. Thank you.